I'm David Liggett with Data Center Hawk. I'm with Max Guévin, and we are in Montreal talking about the data center market. Hey, I'm David Liggett with Data Center Hawk. Focus on cloud and colocation, data center industry trends, the dynamic market. Max, thank you again for letting us join you here in Montreal. Very excited to be here on a snowy day. And I'd love to just start out the conversation with hearing about your background in the space. You've been in the industry a long time, but tell us about that.
I spent 19 years with Videotron, mainly in the telecommunication environment, wholesale environment. And back in 2015, I was seeing this big trend on data center, and I raised my hand on the executive meeting saying, I think we should build data center.
Yeah.
We should jump in the market right away because we're missing the wave right now.
Sure.
So they said, yes, right away, it's a good timing. Put the business case together if you want to, and present that to us. So this is what I did. It took 6 months to put the business case together. And we presented it, and we got the go right away. And that was a big jump quite heavily in the market. We invest 120 million Canadian dollar right off the bat, building 2 brand new data center. And we create this 4-degree colocation subsidiary of Videotron. So that's my story. I was running this division, but we were more focused locally.
Okay.
And with this big trend of hyperscalers, larger enterprise, cloud providers, we were at this stage that doesn't fit anymore in the Videotron, or I should say Québécois business model. So we have decided to sell, and Vantage came to the table, put a very interesting offer, and they told me basically, we want you in the business, we want you to run Canada, and they make me an offer that I can refuse. So 10 months being part of the Vantage Canada business, that's my story in the data center business.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting to see when companies jump into the market, and some of that is understanding how users are changing and recognizing that there's a big opportunity. It seems like you all did that. And this market in Montreal is really impressive. I've certainly enjoyed getting to, we've studied it and learned about it, but you're living it every day and operating facilities here. Why do data center users today find this market attractive? We've seen significant growth, so what's driving that?
4 main reasons. The first one is the cost of the power. Everybody knows that data center operator consume a lot of power. So getting access to those low rates makes a lot of difference in your operation cost. First one. The second one is the green power that Hydro-Québec can provide
talk
to
about
us.
That,
you see here in Montreal, I don't know if you heard about it, but there's 500,000 people coming down the street back in September 27, telling to the government, wake up, you need to do something, the planet is dying. So green energy, it's very popular, and hyperscaler want to act as good citizen, and this is part of their RFP. They want to make sure that the power is green. So this is why it's so attractive here. 99.5% of Hydro-Québec's power is green. Interesting. Makes a difference in the end. The third one is the climate. As you can see today, it's quite cold. So to cool down our data module, it's a lot more efficient and costs almost nothing. We can use cold outside air to cool down our data modules. And the last one is the network. The network, we have fiber paths coming from the East Coast NAPS, network access point, direct route, low latency. Makes a difference because if you have servers in one data center, you need connectivity. You need to be connected to the rest of the world. So latency, it's quite important. And the technology it's bringing very good latency those days.
It certainly
makes a difference.
And I think the data center user community today values the connectivity piece, the network piece, is more important than it's ever been. And so I think as that story gets better here, it'll keep, bringing in users this way. For those that might not be aware, talk about how Montreal sits within the greater Canadian data center market. So, it's, within, 4 or 5 hours from Toronto, and, Vancouver's growing, and Calgary. So talk about how this market differentiates itself from the other data center markets.
I like your question. In Canada, I will say there's 2 major cities that the density of data center operator are quite high. I'm not saying that somewhere else in Canada, like Vancouver or on the East Coast, there's no data center, but I'm saying you see more and more data center in the Montreal area and Toronto area.
Yep.
These are two great markets. Montreal might be a very hot market right now, as I mentioned to you, low cost of power, green energy, and the climate. Climate, Toronto and Montreal is quite the same. But for sure, it makes a difference for hyperscalers.
Yeah.
On the other end, the population of Toronto is quite high, and the hyperscaler want to sit their server right next to the eyeballs to their customers. So Toronto might be very attractive for that. But when you look at the cost of lands, I think it's more favorable for Montreal.
Yeah.
The cost of land are cheaper. In some cases, maybe it's double in Toronto.
Yeah.
Close to $2 million an acre compared to Montreal, let's say $1 million an acre. Yeah. It makes a difference at the end. So I'll say for those reasons, Montreal might be very attractive those days.
It's it's interesting that land cost has become a differentiator because when I think about when I started I was with CBRE for 10 years. I didn't share this with you before, but back in 08, 09, land cost was not as big of an issue because the data center provider community it wasn't as big of a market, and it certainly has grown, and real estate has changed, and so it is a differentiator today. That's one thing that I thought was really interesting that you mentioned. The other thing, and actually we just got off of a panel discussion, but you mentioned on that panel you talked about scalability.
Yeah.
And I think the larger users today, obviously that's one very big area of focus. Flexibility is a big area of focus. Timing is a big area of focus. Talk to us about how scalability and those other things play into the hyperscale data center or large user data center decision.
It is crucial.
Yeah.
It is crucial because these hyperscaler cloud providers, larger enterprise, when they need the power, it's now. Mm-hmm. So when I say now, it's within 4 to 6 months. So if you start from scratch, you don't own the land, you won't make it. Mm-hmm. So you need to build in advance. Our former owners of 4 Degrees were telling us, go sign the contract and we'll build after. Mm-hmm. But in our industry, it doesn't work like that. You need to build first, you take the risk, and when the inventory is there, when the power is there, the big guy is going to come. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's going to come and they will use it quite fast.
Yeah.
So coming into your data center, it's one thing. They will enter maybe with 2, 4, 5 megawatts, mm-hmm. but they want to know what you're going to do for me in the next few months or few years, mm-hmm. when I will jump on the phone and tell you I need more. If you have a small site or you're not able to build quite rapidly, you might be in trouble.
Yeah, and it's. I think the data center user today looks to the data center operator, and they have to make decisions about with their best criteria today.
Yeah.
And also think about
the future.
Yeah, and it's a really challenging thing to do, and a challenging thing to do well.
Exactly.
And at least in my experience, it seems like those data center users are wanting to partner with companies that have today but with the future in mind, and are really focused around those solutions. How does Montreal fit within the some of the closer U.S. markets? So New York, New Jersey, Northern Virginia. This is obviously right across the border, but are you seeing inbound demand from the U.S. coming to Canada? Is mainly the growth from Canadian companies that are just wanting to stay within the market they're in? Where do you see that growth coming from today?
From, as you mentioned, I should say, from the U.S. Mm-hmm. We receive a bunch of demands from the U.S., but we see more and more demands from Europe, from Asia. So it becomes a worldwide thing, and to get more power into this industry. But of course, if you look at all the cloud providers, the hyperscaler, most of them are based out of the US.
Yes.
So I'll say for now, maybe 80% of our demand comes from there, but it might change in the next few years. Yeah,
and what are some of the trends that you're seeing with the enterprise user today? So we talked about how large scale demand is driving data center decision making, but there also are companies that might be banks, healthcare companies, smaller technology companies that do have smaller requirements. 10 cabinets, 250 kW, a megawatt. How are you seeing some of those smaller customers approach their decision making process today?
we had this big trend a year ago. Everybody wants to be 100% cloud. I think we're more for the next few years. We're more in an hybrid model. They want to use cloud environment like Office 365 or Salesforce or those kind of infrastructure, but at the same time they want to keep control on their servers, their application, which is crucial for their business. So I see a lot of, especially on the larger enterprise demand, a lot of hybrid requests. So we want to be in the cloud, but we want to be also in data centers. We want to keep our servers. So I think it's a trend for the next few years. Future will tell, but I'm quite sure for the next 3 to 4, maybe 5 years, that's going to stay.
Yeah, talk about the Vantage footprint and the data center portfolio here in Canada and what you all have today. And sure. I know that those were assets acquired from your former, but talk about those and what you're doing, because I know you all are doing a lot there. Yeah,
we're doing a lot, exactly. We're based out of 6 markets right now, and it's very interesting because Vantage was founded back in 2010, and they operate on 2 markets up to a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And so from 2 markets a year and a half ago, they jumped to 6 markets right away by the acquisition of 4 Degrees, bringing 2 markets, Quebec City and Montreal. We build also, or we're about to build in Phoenix, and we opened back in December 2018 the Ashburn site.
Yeah.
So we're operating in 6 markets. And we're looking for more markets on the daily basis.
Yeah, that's a great example of how I believe the data center operator community has listened to the users, I think more effectively over the last 5 years or so. Just where to grow, what size of facilities to be building, what densities to be building.
So this is our story. This is what we do. We build and we operate data centers, and we like to build campuses. We like to build big because the demand is there. The demand is there, and again, if we want to keep our customer happy, our hyperscaler happy, you need to show them scalability. It's crucial again.
What gets you most excited about being in this industry and things moving forward?
For me, being part of the Vantage family is a game changer. We're very well funded. We have a lot of cash that we can invest, and this is the key of getting success in that business. You need to invest right off the bat. You need to create inventory to be more attractive for those big players.
Yeah. Well, Max, thank you so much for taking the time to connect, and I'm excited to see
my
portfolio grow in the future.
Yeah, and please come visit our data centers. It's going to be our pleasure.
Thank you very much.